Here we are again. My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live, all set for cricketing action from the desert and an exciting encounter coming up. It's Mumbai taking on Punjab. At the very top, a quick reminder that we've had a bit of a redundant toss because it's been won by Punjab. They decided to bowl. If Mumbai had won the toss, they would have wanted to bat. What a waste of time that was. But nonetheless, that's the news from the toss. Mumbai are batting first. In the studio with me, a couple of quick gentlemen quick bowlers from the southern hemisphere. That's not the kind of slip you want to make. Pommie Mbangwa and Shaun Pollock. Before we get to any cricket, gentlemen, Pommie, I have to start by asking you, is there any Eggs Benedict left in the hotel?
I only had 2 eggs, mate. Nice to see you, Gautam. And hello, Shaun. Hello, everybody out there. Yeah, it was a long breakfast. Let me put it that way. Yeah, trying quite a few things.
Shaun, you've obviously a team you're familiar with. Rohit Sharma was candid enough to say he would have wanted to bat first. But if you have to bat first, you'd rather the opposition put you in so there's less pressure.
Yeah, it does take a little bit of pressure off you. But, I mean, each of these teams knows what they want to do first and where they feel their strength lies. And I think Mumbai has got a decent bowling unit. So if they do get a big score on the board, they probably feel like they can defend it. So, yeah, no issues. As you say, it was a bit of a waste of time, but we got some information out of those guys.
We certainly did. Let's jump straight into the playing 11s so we can have a quick look at that. Because Mumbai, of course, as Rohit Sharma mentioned, the toss unchanged. And that's the unchanged lineup they have. The 4 overseas players, Trent Boult, James Pattinson, Shaun Pollard and Quinton de Kock, more or less picking themselves. The only point of discussion, Pommie, was whether or not they would think of Nathan Coulter-Nile instead of James Pattinson.
Yeah, they might have thought about it, but and I guess in a scenario where you're not winning all the time, it is when you sort of look towards that. But I think they've got a pretty settled side and a balanced side with guys who are in decent enough form. I think they've seen enough from each one to suggest to them that this is the formula that they can stick with, perhaps until further on in the tournament where they might tilt the balance somewhat and err on the side of the ball spinning a bit more.
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to see from Mumbai is some runs from Quinton de Kock. I mean, obviously we know as South Africans who cover so many of the games and get to commentate on him all the time, how good he can be and how he can basically win a game on his own. So he hasn't really fired as yet. And I suppose with Chris Lynn there, you're looking over your shoulder thinking Ishan Kishan, and he performed really well. He can keep, if I don't get some runs at some stage here, they might decide just to give someone else a go. So I'd expect him to come good. I mean, he is class. He's left-hander, gives a nice balance up front there. But I think from his own perspective, I think he's sitting there thinking, I think I need to get a performance under my belt.
Yeah, I guess if you're looking over your shoulder, Chris Lynn probably wouldn't be doing that because he doesn't have much of a shoulder to look over.
It keeps popping out.
It does. And he hasn't got much runs under his belt from the Caribbean either. But all of you have been shouldering in, flinging in so many questions on hashtag Ask Cricbuzz Live. We thought we'd feature one of your questions right at the top of the show because Shaun Pollock has already mentioned Quinton de Kock, and it's a question pertinent to de Kock. Is he succumbing to the pressure of scoring at about 10 and over in the power play? Should he give himself some more time like Rohit does before going for the big hits? And Quinton's not the only one we've perhaps accused this of in the tournament. Shaun, we'll come right back to you with that.
Yeah, I don't think he's a guy who overthinks it, Quinny. He's one of those guys who gets to the crease, sort of watches ball, hits ball, and looks to play. The only time he seems to be thinking really about it is when he's walking off and he's drudging in disappointment if he hasn't got any runs. But he's got so much experience, played so much international cricket that I don't think he's trying to assess whether he should or shouldn't. I think with an opening partnership that they've got of him and Sharma, on certain days, Quinny's going to get off to a fly. Other days, Rohit's going to be the one who's the aggressor. They'll balance themselves out as you go through the tournament. So I don't think he's overthinking it or the pressure of trying to score too quickly. But I think he'll be quietly determined about today.
Can the impact of Rohit Sharma's form or at times lack of impact the way Quinton de Kock plays, Pommie?
I think he can use it as an excuse, but I don't think he's going to get away with it. I think it doesn't matter really what's happening at the other end. You just want to make sure that you get runs. I think he's got the trust of Rohit Sharma, his captain, because they've played together so much. But in terms of repaying that trust, and as Shaun says, there is the case of looking over your shoulder. But the only thing that dispels all of that is just getting a score that says, if it's not a score that's 60 and 70 and wins the game, it's a score that says and shows everyone, including himself, that, hey, actually, I'm not in bad form. I'm hitting it okay. I got 40, whatever it is, and it got us started. I would like to carry this on. And the team themselves will then not be asking questions saying he can go from the 40 or 35 or whatever he got quickly to maybe doubling that in a game where he then wins it for them.
Well, he used to be one player that was almost an automatic choice in your My 11 Circle team. I certainly used to pick him every single time because he'd pick up those catches behind the stumps, get the runs for you. This season has been a little bit different. So for all of you who haven't quite got your teams together, this is how you do it, of course. And if from time to time we come up with tips for you. So I'm not quite sure about Quinton de Kock at the moment. I haven't picked him in my team for today. I'm wondering if I'm going to regret that or not. But before the show finishes, we're going to have a Trump tip for you. But for now, let's have a look at the opposition, the men in red, the men from the north, from Punjab. They've been doing pretty well in this tournament, led by KL Rahul and Mayank Agarwal in scintillating form. They've made just the one change. The sort of mystery spin of Murugan Ashwin has given way to the less mysterious but still effective Krishnappa Gautam. Almost like for like, gentlemen?
Yeah, I think so. The thing about it, when I think of Krishnappa Gautam, it's not just his bowling that I think of. I think of him hitting sixes. He's got that reputation as well. So in the bowling attack, yes, he's got to do that because it's first job. You've got to make sure that you go okay. But there are also, a couple of left-handers that you've got to work against in the Mumbai Indian side. And I think that's probably what's tilted it slightly into his favor in terms of coming into that bowling attack.
Well, we're not sure where Krishnappa Gautam will bowl, but Shaun, KL Rahul mentioned at the toss, deciding to bowl first. There might be something up front for his seamers. That attack, who do you think he needs to get the most out of? Sheldon Cotton?
Yeah, I think he touched on the fact that it's a new surface, so there might be some assistance. You might find the ball nipping around. I think Shami and Cottrell will be dead keen to bounce back after what happened the other night, where they basically should have secured the victory for the Kings 11. So I'm looking for a nice, good performance from them. Bishnoi has been someone who's impressed me a lot. I've been happy with what I've seen from him, even in that game that they lost and everyone went the distance. His economy rate was really, really good. So he's another one I'm going to watch out for and see how he goes. Neesham, I don't know what sort of part he will play. I think he can be effective at times if you get him on at the right time. But when you look at that Kings 11 side, I think we haven't seen the firepower in the middle yet. And I'm sure that's going to win quite a few games for them. I mean, they've had a bit of the top two have been taking the bulk of the runs and been a bit of gluttons at the top of the order there with the runs that they've scored. But you've got some firepower there, haven't you? Maxwell, Pooran, Shahzad Khan, Nair, Neesham, and then Pommie mentions about Gautam as well. So there's plenty of hittability coming in after the top two, but it's whether they get a chance, I suppose, which is a good thing for the team.
I mean, how many 11s or squads can boast of somebody like Christopher Henry Gale just sitting and entertaining people in the dressing room, but not getting out there in the middle?
and he is entertaining people in the dressing room. He's busy off the field, I'm told, and I see on social media that music and everything. Look, I think at the start of the tournament, you have to commend the Kings 11 coaching staff in Anil Kumble, and it's no less than I would have expected from him. A pretty pragmatic fellow in that, Chris has not been playing cricket, whereas Nicholas Pooran has. And so if you're going to select on the size of the name rather than on form and kind of preparation, then you could run into trouble. Yes, you might pick him and he'll hit the ball out the ground, but it made sense at the time to go with the guy who has been playing. Hey, if Pooran hadn't played, we wouldn't have seen that Superman save, would we? And I dare say, yeah, never mind, I won't say it.
Well, the other factor is you might also not have seen that Superman save had Pooran been playing and been given the gloves. We had a discussion the other day about KL Rahul keeping, and I did sort of mention that from a little interaction I had with Pooran, it's not his number one suit. If he does it for the balance of the side, but if you give him a choice, he'd much rather be in the outfield, and he showed why, Polly.
Yeah, it was superb. When I keep looking at that replay, I just wish, with the way he scooped it, it wasn't far from Maxwell. Imagine if he had managed to pop it up in the air and Maxwell dived and took a one-hander. It would go down as the all-time best bit of fielding that you'll ever see. Not that it was far off. But the only other question I do have is the pressure situations that Kings 11 have to deal with. And KL Rahul's, he's not a full-time captain in most of the formats. So I think 2 occasions now, it needed a calmer head, and it needed someone just to have a word in the bowlers' ears. One was when they were bowling to Stoinis. The other one was the other night when they ended up losing, having to defend that massive, with all those massive runs at the end. So that's the point I'm going to look to see. Is there someone else who's maybe chatting? As Pommie said, they've got a good management staff there. You would think that they would get in his ear and say, listen, we need to maybe just spend a little bit of time speaking to our bowlers and being clear about those plans. Because it did just look like they were trying to get through, because they kept making the same mistake. So there wasn't much communication there. So I'm just looking to see what happens tonight.
Yeah, I tell you what, though, guys, for me, if I'm sitting in the management side, I'm trying to figure out how you just clear your head of the games that you lose when you should have won them. Because there are 2 games now, and the one that we're talking about in Sharjah, they should have won that. And that's a case of the ball, guys not, and you bowl 1% better in each of those overs, those last 4 overs, and you win the game, and you win it comfortably. You don't win it by a little bit. In the context of what was going on, you go for 1 less boundary. You've still gone for plenty. You've still done not as good as you would like, but you win the game by a long way. And then the other one is when they were playing in Dubai, where I think it's Agarwal, top form, playing beautifully, love to watch him, but 1 run to win or whatever it is, and you don't get over the line.
With 3 balls or 4 balls.
Yeah, hit the ball, full toss, hit it to the guy in the deep out. How do you get rid of that in a team? Because you can't throw away 4 points. That's what they've done.
But both teams in that situation, aren't they, Pom? I mean, both coming to this game, off their last games, both of them, in many ways, with Pollard at the end there, they should have won it. So they'll be both dead keen to rectify things, because you don't want those things to not go according to plan for a period of time, and you also don't want to do back-to-back losses. That has a big impact on everything in that side.
Yeah, and I think just what Shaun Pollock and Pommie Mbangwa mentioned at the moment is relevant in that points table. Both teams on 2 each, and both teams ideally should have been on 4 points each at the top. It should have been lots of teams on 4, but these 2 teams will feel we've probably done as well, if not better, than some of the guys on 4, but hey, we're stuck on 2. We need to fix that. And at least from one of these 2 teams, we talk about communication, we talk about leadership. Somebody who plays so many roles in the team, in the Mumbai team, is the gentleman we've selected for our boost stamina meter today. Yeah, he bats in the middle order. He can bludgeon the ball. He's captain of his national side, captains franchises in his part of the world. And in terms of his stamina score, he comes in at number 8 with still a very decent boost stamina score. But he's someone who's so crucial if you look at the parameters we've chosen and why we put him in there. Batting rating of 82.2, 58.4% of time on the pitch. Now, that can only happen if you're not just batting, but you're also bowling. And when you're bowling and when you're in the field, you can't always quantify the fact that he's in the hot spot so often. Key member of the side, Shaun Pollock, Karen Pollard.
Yeah, he is. I mean, and even from a leadership perspective, when I was there, he was still relatively young, but the role he plays in the Caribbean League in particular, he's often there offering advice to Rohit. He's a hitter at the end. The game's not over until Pollard's out, and his fielding is brilliant. He still doesn't play as much of a role with the ball as he should, I feel. Even when I was there, at Mumbai, which is a while ago. We really wanted to try and get more out of him because he's a big guy. He's got some good variations, but he's always in the game. And as you say, there's no surprise that from a stamina perspective, his ratings are as they are, and I'm sure they're looking for a performance from him now. He's played 150 times for Mumbai already, so we'll see how he goes today.
Yeah, on that boost stamina as well, actually, guys, I'll just throw in that because of the two grounds that are quite big, what we're seeing is a Shaun Pollock who's running hard between wickets. I'm sure that kind of lifts the score as far as the boost stamina meter. Now, it's not normal that he would, because he hits the ball so hard, so when he does hit it, it gets to the field as quickly. He doesn't really get a chance to get back for a second. And number two, generally just clears the fence and away he goes. But this time around, he's having to run hard and is doing it, which is good to see. That knee must be okay.
But Pommie, just staying on his bowling for a second, Shaun has touched upon it. Saw him in the Caribbean. He was very keen, especially when he's captain. He likes to bring himself on at strategic times to bowl, especially when there's a bit of a crisis. But when you speak to him, he doesn't rate himself very highly as a bowler. He says, look, I come on at times. I'm not quick. I don't have that movement. And that's why he relies on tricks like bowling from behind the crease, a little bit of gamesmanship with the batsman. So he doesn't rate himself that highly as a bowler.
Well, I reckon he's one of those captains. There's one we're talking to here who didn't shy away from bowling. He bowled first, right? But many guys, if they have the opportunity for somebody else to bowl, and I wouldn't blame him in scenarios now where you're being sent to all parts, But I personally think he can play a much bigger role because he's not quick. Because he doesn't have that pace and has to rely on different skills, many are standing there waiting and lining balls up that are at normal pace. And his change-ups will get mishits, will get wickets, guys caught on the boundary with the big fields. I really think, and I don't know what Shaun thinks, I really think that it would be worth Rohit using him that little bit more.
Yeah, I reckon that's pretty much what the verdict is from all of us here. But talking about, we briefly touched on communication within the camp, say from Punjab. The one piece of communication you cannot falter is that between the two openers. And it helps when you're best of friends. You've come through the youth system. You know each other well. Same city, KL Rahul and Mayank Agarwal. And then, of course, you end up in a major tournament, major franchise, and you're opening the batting together. Shaun Pollock, looking at these two guys when they come out to bat, it's just they enjoy each other's company. So they don't want number 3 to come into bat.
Yeah, look at those figures. How impressive is that? And it's just good vibes. It's good energy when you get together and you're out there, you're living it for each other. That's why sometimes you look at teams and it gets down to selection. They go, well, how can you get that guy from the same province? But the fact of the matter is the chemistry is good. They know how to run between the wickets. They want each other to do well. They know each other's games. So there's so many positives that come out of it. And as you say, at the start of this tournament, they've gelled so well. And Kings 11 will be just hoping, just saying, please, let's let this keep going for a long, long period. Because if they do, they're going to get into the playoffs.
Pommie, you've been at all 3 Punjab games so far, seen them up close and personal. What has impressed you most about this Bengaluru friend partnership?
Just style. I'm a KL Rahul fan. You know that already. I love watching him bat. And the thing about the way that they go about, cobbling together, and that's a terrible word to use, because essentially it's more like brushes on a canvas, it's with grace that they play, and they don't ever seem to be slogging, and yet the rate at which they score is a rate of knots. So it's just beautiful watching. And I think it's a lesson to many on these grounds, particularly, and I don't know what pitch we're going to get. It's a new surface, I think, in Abu Dhabi today. So it may well play better than we had a couple of days ago. But on the surfaces that are good, there isn't a need to hoik across the line, to slog at it. Just normal cricket shots work. in whether you're going in the air or through the field. And for me, that's been the most impressive thing, that they've played cricket shots.
And KL Rahul seems to enjoy this opposition, Shaun. His last 3 outings against Mumbai, twice, once of course 100, once just short of 100, but every time he's been dominant. And as Pommie said, there's never an ugly stroke somehow in the middle of that.
Yeah, I think the bowling attack that comes up against him almost suits him, because you've got 3 class bowlers at the top of the order who bowl quickly, and he's just got to try and play normal cricket shots. He doesn't have to try and reinvent himself. He can just be his normal KL Rahul stuff. He's got such elegance to it and got so many good shots that he just plays normally and can normally get off to a good start. So there's no surprise. Sometimes you get on a slow wicket and you've got guys who give you no pace. You might have to try different shots. But against this bowling lineup, he's just got to be himself.
Yeah, it's also getting to that time of the show when some of you late Latifs are wondering, oh, we haven't made that last minute change in our team. And these guys haven't given us their tip yet. We haven't forgotten, you guys. We haven't forgotten. My 11th Circle Trump player for today, in case you were thinking of sticking Chris Gayle in, don't. He's not playing. My 11th Circle Trump player for today is Ravi Bishnoi. Not only because he comes, I don't like to use the word cheap, but he's affordable, shall we say, more affordable in a context of a My 11th Circle team. But it's not just that. His performance has to talk. And Shaun mentioned him a little earlier, Pommie. He's someone who has played a bit of a role, and he slipped under the radar.
And I suppose it's fair enough that he would slip under the radar, because even when you look at his performances, it's not many wickets. There's the one game where him and Murugan Ashwin got wickets, but his role is kind of somewhat diminished by the fact that it's not glamorous. There's not a whole lot of drama going on, but that is the very point. The very point is that not a lot goes on. He gets through the overs. There are many looking for big leg break, and you don't get big leg break because he's over the perpendicular, so the ball doesn't really turn that much, and he goes googlies and across and top spinners, and he's got great control. It's good. And what's wonderful as well is seeing under 19 players or recently under 19 players turning up in big tournaments like these and able to play a part. It's fantastic, I think.
Yeah, he played a big role in South Africa, Shaun.
Yeah, I didn't get to follow that World Cup all that many times, but I did see him in that final where he bowled nicely. And he is class, and I think that's where they learn a lot of their confidence. And sometimes I think the earlier you get them in, the 18, 19, 20, they almost got no scar tissue involved. So they just come and back themselves and do the job. And he's got to have some confidence from the way he's bowled so far in this tournament. And then if you watched Rashid Khan's performance on this ground, it should give him an idea of what he does or doesn't have to do. So they'll have watched that carefully. And let's see what he can do against Mumbai. Mumbai have got guys, though, who like to put the spinners under pressure in the middle overs. So he's got his work cut out for him tonight.
He does. He'll be glad they're not playing in Sharjah, though. But Ravi Bishnoi is not the only person who turns it one way one time, another way the next. There is another person who does that. He goes by the name of Joy Bhattacharya. You never know what you're going to get with Joy this season. He started out with some toughies, then he gave a couple of full tosses, and I wonder what he's got in store for us today. Let's see our Joy Factor question for this Mumbai versus Punjab clash. The last person to achieve this is currently in a team in this tournament. The second last one is in one of our Cricbuzz live shows, and the fourth last is playing today. What cricketing feat am I talking about? That's fascinating. There's always a relevance to his questions. That's one thing you figured out by now. It's sometimes got to do with the day, the two teams you're playing, the venue, or of course, the wonderful show that we're bringing to you. So I'll let you gentlemen stew on that for a while, because there's a more important thing that you need to stew on for the moment. And that is who's going to be picking up the My 11 Circle badge of honor for today. The task is very simple. Predict the score at the end of 20 overs. Shaun, you've already won 2, so I'll let you go first.
Okay, I'm going for... Quinny's going to be good today. I'm going for 187.
187, led by Quinton de Kock. You want to go next?
I will go next. And I want to say, in my mind, I had 182. I'm going to go... I think I might stick with that. I'm going to go 180. No, 180.
180. I'll come back a little bit lower than that. Good start, few wickets. Maybe Ravi Bishnoi, our My 11 Circle Trump player, gets in there. Sheldon Cottrell gets involved. Mohammad Shami picks up to 169. 169 for me. Competitive score, bigger ground, not quite Sharjah. Let's see what happens. I've had an awful record with the Badge of Honor this season. I need to sort things out in my head. So let's see if it works. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Shaun. Thank you, Pommie Mbangwa. We've got to take that title away from Shaun Pollock. But of course, for the moment, we'll focus on the match in the middle as well as the match here on the show. Cricbuzz Combox will be back in the 10th over, and we'll wrap everything up first at the end of the innings on My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live. We'll see you soon.